esta mañana con nosotros hablando del tema que todavía no he mencionado, pero ya mismo abundo, que es el señor Steve Trout de el Wireless Infrastructure Association. Así que nos está acompañando en esta mañana para tener una de las presentaciones principales. También Amelia de Jesús, que también es del Wireless Infrastructure Association, Puerto Rico. Y vamos a tener de manera virtual al señor José Otero, que es el vicepresidente de 5G Américas, que va a estar ofreciendo su conferencia de manera virtual. Así que vamos a tener una mañana muy interesante. El Internet Day en esta ocasión va a correr en torno al tema la Internet 5G hacia 6G. Es un tema muy importante para nosotros, para Puerto Rico y para el mundo entero. Todo esto se está moviendo, estamos en 5G y hay muchísimas cosas pasando y diciéndose en torno a todo lo que es 5G. Y en Puerto Rico están pasando cosas muy importantes relacionadas con este tema, que ya en breve Enrique Walker-Smith va a abundar un poco sobre el tema. Pero definitivamente ya se está hablando mucho de 6G y de qué es lo que va a estar sucediendo, hacia dónde vamos, qué es lo que va a pasar, qué es eso. Esa es parte de lo que queremos lograr a través de este evento, que definitivamente está totalmente atado a lo que es la Internet y a la misión y los propósitos del Internet Society de Puerto Rico, que también es un tema que vamos a estar tocando brevemente con nuestro presidente del Internet Society de Puerto Rico, Alberto Cruz, que también va a estar hablando sobre esa parte. Van a estar pasando otras cosas durante la mañana. Vamos a estar también teniendo un breve evento con José Otero, que vamos a estar trabajando algo con ellos. Y además de eso, también quiero dar la bienvenida a Dayana Ávila Ramos, que es la presidenta de la Asociación de Estudiantes de Ciencias de Computadora, con quien también vamos a tener más adelante una intervención. Así que es una mañana que tenemos muchas actividades, muchas cosas de qué hablar y muchas cosas para aprender. Y obviamente quiero dar la bienvenida a los invitados que nos acompañan aquí hoy. Waldo Acevedo, también de la oficina de Enrique Walker-Smith, y también a nuestro staff de la institución, nuestros directores de departamento de electrónica, departamento de computadora, ayudante especial, varios miembros de nuestro staff y estudiantes que nos están acompañando en la mañana y todos los invitados. Al igual que a todos los que están con nosotros. Ya les dimos la bienvenida, pero nuevamente gracias por estar. Vamos entonces a iniciar inmediatamente con la primera actividad de la mañana. Así que les voy a dejar en este momento con nuestro distinguido invitado, Enrique Walker-Smith, que va a estar hablando con nosotros y teniendo la primera parte. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Bienvenido.
Buenos días a todos. Primero que nada, gracias, doctor Miguel Vélez, por hacerme parte de este evento tan importante y recibirnos en la Universidad de Bayamón, Alberto Cruz. Gracias también por todo el apoyo que le han dado y a todos los esfuerzos que estamos haciendo en el gobierno. Pues entidades como la universidad, como Internet Society, son claves para nosotros asegurar que lo que estamos haciendo en el gobierno funcione y tenga un impacto real, ¿verdad? Históricamente el gobierno quiere implementar y ejecutar diferentes eventos, pero es importante saber, conocer que lo que se está haciendo está teniendo un impacto, está teniendo un resultado. Y como parte del día de hoy, de los esfuerzos, pues voy a hablar un poquito breve de los esfuerzos que el gobierno está haciendo para mejorar lo que es la calidad del Internet, la conectividad, ¿verdad? Y todos los trabajos de los servicios gubernamentales a nivel digital. Nosotros el año pasado arrancamos un proyecto bien abarcador, bien optimista, que se llama Smart Island. El propósito de ese proyecto es conectar a todo Puerto Rico, toda propiedad, toda casa, todo negocio en Puerto Rico y estructura a conectividad de alta velocidad, ¿verdad? Lo que le llamamos banda ancha, sea por fibra, sea por aire, por satélite, de la manera necesaria para poder llegar a todo el rincón de la isla. Como conocen, el área de la montaña, diferentes áreas específicas tienen problemas de conectividad, tienen problemas de internet. Pues con este programa estamos llevando, trabajando lo que es la infraestructura necesaria para llevar esa conectividad a toda la isla. ¿Qué pasa? Eso es una base, porque también nosotros tenemos que promover que el ciudadano utilice ¿verdad?, la tecnología y utilice los recursos que están a su disposición para trabajar remoto, para estudiar remoto, para atenderse médicamente remoto, que tengan esa habilidad en el momento que no puedan ir físicamente a un sitio, que mediante el internet, mediante la tecnología que existen, se pueda lograr ofrecer esos servicios. Otro de los temas importantes que nosotros como gobierno estamos promoviendo es digitalizar los servicios del gobierno. Yo soy uno de los portavoces de un gobierno 100% digital. Nosotros tenemos que promover que el gobierno esté disponible para el ciudadano en el momento que el ciudadano lo necesite, ¿verdad? Que no es solamente abrir el gobierno de 8 de la mañana a 5 de la tarde, sino que si el ciudadano necesita hacer una gestión gubernamental por la noche en su casa, pues lo puede hacer, pero también que tenga la conectividad y tenga el conocimiento necesario para poder hacerlo. Así que con todos estos esfuerzos que nosotros estamos insertando dentro de lo que es Smart Island Initiative, pues estamos trabajando en la digitalización del gobierno, la construcción de fibra óptica y mejoramiento de todo lo que es el Internet wireless en Puerto Rico, y también el trabajo de mano que conlleva adiestrar a los ciudadanos para utilizar todas estas tecnologías. No solamente limitarnos a que tengamos la tecnología para tener celular y ver redes sociales y conectarnos a Internet, que lo utilicemos para beneficio de nuestro entorno y de insertarnos a la sociedad. ¿Verdad? Con esa palabra dejo el compromiso de tanto de mi oficina como de la Puerto Rico Technology, de Puerto Rico Innovation and Technology Service, de entrar en más colaboraciones y trabajar más de mano con la universidad y con el Internet Society para integrarnos mejor y asegurarnos que le estamos sacando provecho a lo que el gobierno está haciendo. El gobierno está implementando y ejecutando soluciones efectivas, y obviamente es un orgullo de nosotros decirlo, que de aquí es que salió Sesco Digital, ¿verdad?, de la Universidad de Bayamón, de un proyecto de internado y una colaboración que se hizo con el gobierno y la universidad, y queremos promover más ese tipo, ¿verdad?, ese tipo de esfuerzo. Hay muchas soluciones que se están haciendo en el gobierno para beneficio de todos nosotros, o sea que es bien importante nosotros poder promover ese tipo de colaboración. Así que nuevamente agradezco a la Universidad de Internet Society en invitarme el día de hoy, y voy a proceder a leer una proclama del gobernador en su representación para establecer oficialmente con el Día de Internet. Si, ¿verdad?, les agradezco que vengan para la voy a leer y se la voy a entregar. Proclama del gobernador. Boletín administrativo número P 2023-448, Día del Internet. Por cuanto la red de Internet nos permite colaborar globalmente, ayuda a difundir ideas, permite el intercambio de conocimientos, contribuye a establecer vínculos sociales y comerciales, provee entretenimiento y motiva la innovación en todos los aspectos de nuestra vida, permitiendo el desarrollo integral e intelectual de todos los ciudadanos y ciudadanas en Puerto Rico y alrededor del mundo. Por cuanto la función integral que tiene el Internet actualmente en nuestra vida requiere la concienciación respecto a la necesidad de preservar y proteger la red de Internet a fin de garantizar el desarrollo, la seguridad, la estabilidad y el acceso futuro absoluto y no censurado para el beneficio de todos. Por cuanto, con el propósito de subrayar la importancia de la red en todos los ámbitos del quehacer humano y de reducir la brecha digital para promover acceso a la conexión de Internet a mayor número de personas, el gobierno de Puerto Rico, en afirmación a nuestra política pública de fomentar el desarrollo socioeconómico de nuestro pueblo, designa el 1 de noviembre de este año como el Día del Internet. Por tanto, yo, Pedro Pierluisi, gobernador de Puerto Rico, en virtud de la autoridad que me confiere la Constitución de las leyes de Puerto Rico, proclamo el 1 de noviembre de 2023 Día del Internet. Al así hacerlo, exhorto al pueblo de Puerto Rico y a las entidades públicas y privadas, e igualmente a los medios de comunicación, a la solidaridad que amerita esta conmemoración de interés público. El testimonio de lo cual firmo la presente y hago estampar en ella el gran sello del gobierno de Puerto Rico en la ciudad de San Juan, hoy 23 de octubre del 2023. Promulgada de acuerdo con la ley, hoy 23 de octubre del 2023, firman el secretario de Estado Marrero Díaz y el gobernador de Puerto Rico, Pedro Enrique.
en un momento extraordinario, ¿verdad? Y así le damos la importancia al evento y le agradecemos a Enrique Walker Singh por leer la proclama y al gobernador de Puerto Rico por haber estado disponible para apoyarnos en este esfuerzo, que ha sido así constantemente a través de todos los años, 8 años, llevamos a cabo el evento. Hemos tenido siempre el apoyo de los representantes de los gobernadores en momento, ¿verdad? Vamos entonces ahora a proceder con la presentación y el mensaje oficial y el saludo de nuestro presidente de la Junta de Gobierno del Internet Society de Puerto Rico, Norberto Cruz. Así que adelante. Gracias.
Buenos días a todos y a todas. Un placer estar en esta mi alma mater de la Universidad de Puerto Rico, el Quinto de Bayamón. Es un honor celebrar el Día del Internet en Puerto Rico. Le agradecemos al señor gobernador por comunicar a través de esa proclama la importancia de este día. Así que agradecemos al señor Enrique Walker por siempre apoyar la gestión del Internet Society y que entendemos que la innovación en el país es de vital importancia para que todos podamos disfrutar de tecnologías de punta y tecnologías que llevan a Puerto Rico a niveles extraordinarios. Quiero darles la bienvenida también y el agradecimiento al rector de la Universidad de Puerto Rico en Bayamón, el doctor Miguel Pérez, y a su equipo de trabajo que siempre nos apoyan de manera incondicional en cualquier gestión que tenemos aquí en la universidad. También agradecer al cuerpo de profesores y directores de departamento, así como a los estudiantes de dicha universidad y a los compañeros del área técnica que siempre también participan. También un saludo muy especial a invitados de alto nivel como esta señora Amelia de Jesús del Wireless Infrastructure Association. Welcome. Y también tenemos al señor Steven Pro de Civitex Strategic Group. Welcome to Puerto Rico. También un abrazo muy especial a un amigo de este país, al señor José Pérez, que es vicepresidente de 5G América, con quien el Internet Society tiene una relación de colaboración estrecha, donde nos permite de ambas partes pues, aprovechar todo el conocimiento que dicha entidad a nivel de las Américas tiene a su vez para el tema de 5G y la tecnología wireless. Además, también pues, nos sentimos apoyados porque estamos siendo reconocidos a nivel de otros países con el trabajo que se hace aquí en Puerto Rico. Por último, también agradecer a todos los miembros de la Junta Directora del Internet Society de Puerto Rico por hacer posible este voluntariado, que así lo lleva a ser concurso voluntario, que dedicamos de nuestro tiempo para avanzar la agenda de conectividad en el país y apoyar en la reducción de la brecha digital. Tengo una breve palabra sobre el tema de la celebración y si me permiten darle lectura. Hoy nos reunimos en la Universidad de Puerto Rico en Bayamón para celebrar la poderosa herramienta que ha transformado nuestras vidas, conectándonos a nivel global y brindándonos infinitas posibilidades. El Día del Internet es una ocasión especial para reflexionar sobre cómo esta innovación ha evolucionado la forma en que trabajamos, nos educamos, nos comunicamos y vivimos. Esta jornada exploraremos las oportunidades que Internet ofrece a Puerto Rico, fomentando la inclusión digital, impulsando el emprendimiento y promoviendo la colaboración entre la industria, el gobierno y la sociedad civil. Juntos trabajaremos para hacer que Internet sea un recurso accesible y enriquecedor para todos los ciudadanos en nuestra hermosa isla. A lo largo de esta mañana disfrutaremos de presentaciones inspiradoras que nos ayudarán a comprender mejor cómo aprovechar al máximo el potencial de Internet, y esta celebración debe ser una oportunidad para aprender, compartir y fortalecer algunas de nuestras ideas a través de las conexiones en y fuera de ellas. Agradecemos a todos los que están presentes aquí y de manera virtual, a nuestros patrocinadores, colaboradores que hacen posible que estemos aquí en este recinto. Le invitamos a siempre unirse a la conversación en línea a través de hashtag Día de Internet Puerto Rico, y entre todos y todas podemos contribuir mejor a un mejor país a través de conectar a los conectados y que sigamos avanzando a través del uso de la tecnología. Quiero aprovechar, si me permiten, poner en contexto lo que hace Internet Society en la sociedad. Aquí tenemos una de las diapositivas la programa que difícilmente que se llama Enrique Walker, el gobernador de Puerto Rico reconoce la importancia del Internet, y más aún cuando Puerto Rico estamos viviendo un momento histórico bien importante donde se busca expandir el Internet de banda ancha en todo el país. Así que, Enrique, de nuestra parte del Internet Society, el apoyo a la gestión que se está realizando a nivel del gobierno central para llevar Internet a todos los ciudadanos de Puerto Rico. Cuenta con nosotros como ahora y como lo necesitan en la entidad.
Gracias.
Quiero reconocer que Internet Society es una organización no gubernamental y tiene el lucro que es una organización que está constituida para el desarrollo de Internet a nivel mundial. Durante más de 30 años, esta entidad se ha dedicado a empoderar a personas de todo el mundo. Y hay una parte importante que me gusta de esto, es que se busca que le demos voz a Internet. Internet, a ser un tema técnico, no muchas personas entienden la magnitud. En ocasiones, lo piensan que Internet quizás realizar una búsqueda a través de un navegador o utilizar una red social y hay que ese conocimiento, pero hablamos de Internet como un ecosistema amplio, vibrante, cambiante día a día y que hace posible que muchas de las gestiones que hacemos hoy en día sean posibles. Esta organización se asegura de que la red global se permanezca abierta, conectada, segura y confiable. Entre las actividades que realizamos en la organización, puedo mencionar una de ellas, es la promoción de políticas y normas abiertas, seguras y accesibles para Internet. Internet es un modelo donde hay muchas partes interesadas que hacen posible que esa red funcione. Tenemos que verla como un área de crecimiento continuo y cada día enfrentando nuevos retos. Y el segundo de los puntos, buscamos como organización fomentar la innovación y la evolución tecnológica de Internet a través de la investigación y colaboración. Este tipo de organismo nos permite colaborar con otros miembros en otros países, intercambiar ideas, buenas prácticas, en ocasiones compartir soluciones a problemas comunes que también podemos enfrentar. Gracias a ese amplio network que tenemos, pues siempre podemos de una manera u otra contar con algún tipo de apoyo en alguna de las gestiones que así llevemos a cabo. Buscamos también impulsar la participación y la inclusión de todas las comunidades en el desarrollo de Internet, especialmente de aquellos países y regiones con menor acceso y recursos. Y este punto es importante porque pudiéramos pensar que todo el mundo está conectado, pero más de la mitad de este planeta carece de esa conectividad. Por lo que debemos trabajar para conectar a la mayor cantidad de personas y que puedan aprovechar las bondades que Internet nos ofrece a todos, como la oportunidad de estudiar en línea, de trabajar también de manera remota, o en ocasiones de recibir apoyo de la ayuda de la medicina. Son algunos de los ejemplos que pueden disfrutar y muchas personas. También buscamos fortalecer la seguridad y privacidad, la confianza en línea a través de la educación y concientización. Es importante trabajar en la adopción de las nuevas tecnologías y siempre tengo una gestión muy personal y apoyo también a los adultos mayores en esa transición, esa adopción de nuevas tecnologías para que puedan aprovecharlas a y no seguir creando brechas adicionales. También buscamos apoyar a comunidades de profesionales, expertos, activistas, para avanzar en la misión de lo que es Internet Society. La organización fue fundada para el año 1992. Tenemos oficinas regionales en África, Europa, América Latina y el Caribe, América del Norte, Sur y Sudeste Asiático. El capítulo de Puerto Rico fue fundado en el 2001 y desde esa fecha hemos de manera incansable trabajado, o por lo menos aportar nuestro granito de arena para conectar a más personas en el país, ayudarlos y adoptar nuevas tecnologías. De manera global, contamos con 104.680 miembros voluntarios en todo el mundo, y eso sigue ampliando esa cifra, 87 organizaciones miembros y más de 126 capítulos, lo que nos hace ser una red robusta de contactos a nivel global y un placer siempre colaborar con la Universidad de Puerto Rico a nivel central, pero también muy corazón a la Universidad de Puerto Rico Bayamón, que es parte de la mamá. Internet y su impacto, y entonces a manera de ejemplo, muchos de nosotros pues conocemos, pues experimentamos que cuando ocurrió la pandemia del COVID-19, gracias a poder contar con acceso a Internet, muchos de nosotros pudo llevar a cabo una gestión en su vida que lamentablemente otras que así no estaban conectadas no pudieron lograr. Conectarse con familiares, recibir algún tipo de apoyo de medicina, estudiar en línea, etc. Este reto que la pandemia nos presentó fue un ejemplo de si la red no estuviese sólida, si no hubiese funcionado de manera adecuada desde sus comienzos como fue diseñada, la historia hubiese podido ser distinta. Afirmamos que millones de personas que han aprovechado este ecosistema así lo hicieron. Pero también es importante mencionar que a mayor cantidad de personas conectadas, nuevos retos nos vamos a enfrentar a través del tema de lo que es la seguridad, la información y la privacidad de las personas. Los objetivos del capítulo de Puerto Rico, por sus siglas en inglés, ISOPR, está comprometido en la promoción y el uso responsable e inteligente de las nuevas tecnologías. Eso es claro. Y creemos que este mundo digital está lleno de oportunidades para cada uno de nosotros y así debemos aprovechar. Actualmente tenemos en Puerto Rico más de 500 miembros de manera individual voluntarios en nuestra organización, lo cual les exhorto a que sean parte de la misma y de manera gratuita y podrán recibir información, estar al tanto con nuevos, tenemos oportunidades educativas, tenemos oportunidades de financiamiento de proyectos a través de la Fundación de Society. Hay 5 áreas principales que son trabajo de política pública, la capacitación y educación que es vital para todos nosotros, alianzas multisectoriales que más adelante voy a mostrar una gráfica, alguna de ellas, investigación y fuentes de información y cómo conectamos a los usuarios a través de esta nueva tecnología. Algunos de nuestros colaboradores, como podrán apreciar, se encuentran ICANN, que es la autoridad de dominios, y un sinnúmero de academias que podemos sentirnos orgullosos de colaborar con todos ellos y que aportemos nuestro granito de arena con el expertise de la organización a adelantar diferentes causas de diferentes entidades. Los exhorto a que accedan a internetsociety.org, seleccionen la opción de Member Login, creen una cuenta de manera gratis, activen el capítulo de Puerto Rico y empiecen a disfrutar de un cúmulo de información que pueden recibir de manera importante para que estén al día en temas relacionados con lo que es el ecosistema. Así que hasta aquí mi parte, vamos a seguir disfrutando de las próximas charlas que tenemos, que sé que serán del agrado de todos, y agradecerles nuevamente por permitirnos estar en este recinto de Bayamón de la Universidad de Puerto Rico, al cual le tenemos una alta estima. Así que, doctor, muchas gracias.
Vamos con el Internet Day del 23. Como hemos dicho antes, el tema central del día es la Internet 5G hacia 6G. Y en este momento procedemos a la primera conferencia del día, que va a estar presentada por Amelia de Jesús, como hemos dicho antes, desde el Wireless Infrastructure Association. Y para leer la biografía de Amelia de Jesús, vamos a traer a Diana Amelia Ocasio, nuestra presidenta de la Asociación de Estudiantes de Ciencias de Computadora, que va a estar entonces leyéndonos, como les dije, la biografía de Amelia de Jesús.
Hello, I will be reading Amelia de Jesus' biography. Amelia de Jesus is the Vice President of Port Solution at the Wireless Infrastructure Association, leading the development of YIA's workplace solutions as the association focuses on developing America's highly skilled, diverse broadband workplace through innovative sectors partnerships. Amelia has over 2 decades of experience in the telecommunications industry. Prior to working in the YIA, she worked at Crown Castle, where she served as the national vice president. She was diverse. She has diverse industry experience, having worked for operators, service, and infrastructure providers. A leader in the industry, she also served as the president of the YIA affiliate Women Wireless Leadership Forum from 2017 to 2019, and she continues to be passionate about coaching and advocacy for youth and women like me. Outside of work, Amelia enjoys a variety of activities, including competitive sports and volunteering. She loves soccer and currently serves as vice chair on the board of Terminus Legion, Atlanta United FC first supporter group. Amelia also enjoys volunteering with meals like Grace and the Children's Restoration Network with her daughter.
Gracias. Thank you, I appreciate that. Appreciate the invitation from Chancellor Velez as well. So as you heard, I'm Vice President of Workforce Solutions at the Wireless Infrastructure Association. So who is the Wireless Infrastructure Association? We're actually an association that represents companies that essentially make up the wireless broadband infrastructure across the United States and territories. Our members are the companies that develop, build, own, manage, in some cases, lease our nation's infrastructure that facilitate all the broadband that we enjoy today. Member companies include the wireless carriers, they include infrastructure providers, as well as the professionals that enable the networks that we use today. WIA, through its advocacy, through its public affairs, and also through its workforce solutions, is very committed to ensuring that we have internet for all across the United States and its territories. We want to make sure that we have broadband access, both fixed and mobile, wherever people work, wherever they travel, wherever they live. So today we're going to talk about 4G to 5G to 6G, and you'll notice, 5G started in 2017 because we had to work on all the standards and requirements to be able to even deploy a network like 5G. So as we transition through 5G, you'll notice that right now we're in the phase of working on the 5G evolution and the advancement of 5G. And we're well on our way to looking at all of the standards and requirements for 6G. So as you'll notice here, 6G is in the making, it's in research and development, but we have a few years before standards are actually released and then actually deployed. So we're looking at 2028 into 2030 for an actual deployment of 6G. Let's talk about that evolution from 4G into 5G. And I did all the way from 4G because I think it's important to see that nice transition through the generational transmissions. So first off, we'll define it in terms of data speeds, and then we'll talk about latency. And just for clarification, when we think about internet speeds, we think about the rates. So how quickly can we transfer a large amount of data? And then when we think about latency, we think about the responsiveness in transmitting the packet to the end customer and back. So you want your data speeds to go fast and you want your latency to be slower. So in terms of data speed, when we transitioned from 4G, we went from 100 megabits per second into 5G, we went up to 10 gigabits per second, and we're expecting in 6G to be upwards of 100 gigabits per second. That's pretty fast. And then when we think about latency again, we go from 30 to 50 milliseconds, then you get slower in terms of your latency to sub 10 milliseconds, and then you transition to sub 1 milliseconds with 6G. We'll continue kind of doing that comparison. So when we think about frequency bands now, we're looking at 4G uses that low frequency band, then we transition to 5G, it's a little bit of a wider range, including millimeter, and then you work into 6G, where you're going to see a lot of those high frequency bands across the technology and deployment. And then deployment. So we did a lot of work as we transitioned 2022. Currently, we're working on 5G rollout. I talked about the advancement and the evolution of 5G, so there's still a lot of work going on around 5G, not just the United States, but across the world. And then obviously we're looking at 6G actually being deployed in a time frame about 2030. Again, I mentioned there's a lot of R&D being done right now for 6G, but it's not available quite yet. We'll see a lot of that rollout from 2028 into the 2030 timeframe. I think this is the exciting part, the usage, right? And I'm going to do a little bit of reading here, so because it's a lot of information. So again, we're taking it from 4G to 5G to 6G. So what was 4G allowing us? 4G was allowing us mobile internet, video streaming like we're doing today, and then basic IoT sensor stuff that folks were using in the field. Then we transitioned to 5G. Now you have improved mobile broadband. You have autonomous vehicles, you have also all those Teslas driving themselves. And then you have industrial applications where, there are farms where automatically systems come on to water them, to treat them, because it's sensing everything around it. So a lot of it's automated that they can use it in industrial services. So through that 5G, then we're looking at 6G. What will that offer us? So 6G, we're expecting even faster mobile communications. We're expecting holographic communications, and that'll be exciting. Everything we see in all those movies, those sci-fi movies, is coming to pass. And then we'll have advanced AI, and we're already seeing a lot of those advanced AIs as well being developed and implemented into our daily lives. By the way, this deck will be shared to everyone, so you will have a lot of this information available. Okay, here's the exciting part. What does this transition from 4G to 5G to 6G do in terms of occupations and opportunities and roles for us? So within our industry, telecommunications, we've always had a need for technicians. We've always had a need for engineers. We've always had a need for folks that run crews and laborers in the field. We've always had a need for folks that do site acquisition work, get all the permits, get all the regulatory, get all the environmental approvals. And we've also had a need for project managers and construction managers. So a lot of similar roles as we transition to 4G into 5G to 6G. Now with advancements in AI and all of these apps being developed, as we think about engineers, now we're just not thinking about RF engineering and network engineering. We're looking at specialization. How can we use spectrum to the best of everyone's ability? Maximize the use of the spectrum, making sure that there's no interference with people's services, and also looking at the network from the perspective of optimizing and making sure that it's most efficient. Similarly, when we think about the roles of project management, those essentially stay the same because we have goals, right? We need to be able to build out certain networks within certain time frames as well within budgets. So that project management mindset stays the same as we work through all of the generational technology. As we think about site acquisition, it's pretty much the same as we transition from 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G. But I think you'll need a specialization because a lot of what the site acquisition team does is spending time with the jurisdiction, OPID, and so forth, making sure that they understand what this technology brings, how it works. So a lot of the role of the site acquisition is informing and consulting and sharing how the technology works, how the application works, and what we're trying to deploy, how it meets within the needs of the community and with the aesthetics of zoning and permitting, for example. Then I think as we think about the technician role, ideally the technician role changes and becomes, and it evolves and becomes more diverse. So you'll always still have field technicians, people that go into the field and essentially build the networks, make sure that they're working, troubleshoot it if there are issues. And then you look at the fiber technician. Well, those are the ones, either they're making sure that you have fiber installed, fiber connected on both ends. And then when you think about the broadband scope of a technician, it really encompasses all of the above, making sure that you're filling the needs and you're able to transmit and provide this internet service for everyone that's needing it. Cyber experts, you guys have probably heard a lot about the need for cybersecurity. So that's obviously one of the roles that's perhaps not newer, but there's definitely going to be a need for more and more of these cybersecurity analysts and technicians and specialists. You're always going to need regulatory and policy and environmental analysts. So that's perhaps not a new role, but it's definitely going to be expanded because as 6G is evolving, we're not even sure what that landscape looks like. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities, but we're not sure exactly what those specific opportunities look like. And you'll definitely need to make sure you have those analysts that can work through the environmental and regulatory requirements. This is a new one, remote sensing specialist. So we talked about the fact that with IoT, you'll be able to do a lot. You'll have different applications, whether it's industrial, whether it's with the government, looking at the traffic signals, all of these different approaches. So this is a new occupation that we're going to be looking at and building out an occupation and a role for that. Supply and logistics, again, as we're deploying networks, there's going to be need for equipment, materials, all of the above. So whereas this is not perhaps a new role, it will definitely be a big opportunity to increase the number of folks that are working through logistics and supply chain issues. And last but not least, deployment specialists. These are the folks that really get engaged to make sure that we have all the components and we can not just design, but be able to implement the plan, again, within budgets and within the time frame that we need. So as we talked about all of these different roles and occupations, you'll notice that I said some of them were existing roles and occupations, some of them are going to be new. But I think the key takeaway here is because 6G is so new, it's still in research and development. As it evolves, so will all of these roles and the opportunities evolve. What I will tell you is it continues to be very exciting as we transition from 3G, 4G, 5G, and now into 6G. Again, I've been in the industry 20 plus years, and every time there's a new generation and technology, there's so many opportunities. One of the things I do with states is working very closely to make sure that I inform and bring career awareness and industry awareness. Because as much as folks use their cell phone, and I left my cell phone back there, but as much as folks use their cell phone, they may not understand how it works. And they may not understand that there's a huge need for more people to join the industry, because frankly, we do have a labor shortage within our industry. So there's a lot of opportunities within this industry. And as I mentioned, you know, it seems like there's a role for everyone, because you may have different interests, but there's a lot of opportunities, and this is just a short list of opportunities and occupations within our industry. A little bit about WIA and what we do. So first and foremost, the Wireless Infrastructure Association is the sponsor of the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprentice Program. And what is that? So since 2017, we actually have been registered with the Department of Labor United States, and we run a competency-based apprentice program. So as much as we're national, we still would work with states and territories so they can have the benefit of this apprentice standards as well as being able to learn through competency-based. Today we're very excited, and there's a star by the 101 because as of last week, we hit that 101 in terms of sponsored employers within our program. We have over 4,000 apprentices that run through a program, and we've worked very closely with the Department of Labor over the years that now we have 15 approved occupations. And as much as wireless is our name, when we think about deployment of networks, we think about it in terms of technology agnostic. You'll need fiber, you'll need fixed wireless applications. So when we think about these apprentices occupation, we also think about it holistically. So we might have a cell site technician, but we'll also have a broadband technician. We'll also have underground and overhead utility technician and so forth. Again, making sure that as an industry, we have these approved occupations. So as people are in their roles, in their jobs, they can continue to train through this apprentice program. So it's on-the-job training, where as you're learning, you gaining that credit, and you're actually working within an approved apprenticeship program. Next, I'll talk a little bit about not just training, but education. I think I briefly touched on some of these apprentices, some of these different roles that we have built out. Okay, so we also do pre-apprentice programs. What is the pre-apprentice? Think about pre-apprentice as pre-employment and then apprenticeship as employment. So through the pre-apprentices, essentially we're getting folks ready to be able to take on jobs, take on roles. Once you've completed the pre-apprenticeship program, you step into apprenticeship program where you're actually getting paid, but you continue to learn. So these are some of the different partners that we include in our program. These are some of the community colleges as well. We actually were awarded the Closing the Skills Gap to the Department of Labor as well. So we work very closely to make sure that we're providing the curriculum and ensuring that students are offered the opportunity to close the skills gap through the curriculum that we offer. Next, I'll talk about the Telecommunications Education Center. So almost 10 years ago, the Wireless Infrastructure Association started what we call TEC, the Telecommunications Education Center, where we provide curriculum. We may develop it, we may acquire it, but ideally, what we do is work with academia to implement some of this curriculum through technical vocational schools, community colleges, 2-year, 4-year universities as well. So as we talk about tech and our offerings, you know, as much as we offer a lot of the cell site and wireless training and core courses around that, we also focus on RF and RF safety, some of the RF spectrum curriculum as well. And as I mentioned before, thinking about deployment, technology agnostic, our training also includes broadband, wireless, DAS, Wi-Fi, essentially all of the technologies we need to be able to move forward in our deployments. So just some highlights, we created a 5G readiness training based on our work that we're doing with the Ohio State University. We were able to create this because they were looking for something around 5G readiness. So we were able to develop that training for them. Our courses, while we offer them via instructor-led classroom and via webinars, we also offer e-learning. So we try to make sure that there's a learning management system that different schools can then have their students log into and use that training. We talked about the workforce training, but also, you know, what we try to do is work very closely with schools and educational systems so that they can have this industry validated and credentialed training to their students. And again, when we offer the training, we do a program with the universities and the schools, technical vocational, to make sure that we offer train the trainer, so teach boot camp, so that everyone's learning at the same time. And we can make sure that we're really expanding that training out to the different schools and universities that need that. This next slide just gives a basic overview of kind of how we lay out the courses. So we talk about the fundamentals, we talk about 5G, we talk about cell sites and wireless, and we go into some of the specifics around gas, small cells, Wi-Fi, and so forth. And I just mentioned the 5G readiness program. Okay, so last but not least, we offer workforce services. We work very closely with states and territories. And essentially, because our mission here is to make sure we're bridging that digital divide and providing internet for all, we support all of the states and territories' efforts to make sure that they can do that. So we come in and we spend time understanding what the labor needs look like in a particular area, what occupations are needed, what jobs are needed to build out the network, what skills might be needed. And then as we work closely with academia, education, and the government, we're then solutioning for what those skills, what those training, what the educational opportunities are to make sure that it's available to students, to people that are currently enrolled, but maybe they are looking for a new career. So there's an opportunity to upskill, reskill. But ideally, we're looking to make sure that we're all partnering together so that we can solution for workforce development. Because as I mentioned, we do have a labor shortage in our industry, and it's important, not only do we encourage folks to join the industry, but we provide them that workforce training and education. Once they actually are trained up and they complete the courses, they have the credentials, then one of the roles that we play is making sure that we can match them with employers, because it's important, as you know, they have that training, that we're filling the pipeline for the employers so we can build out networks and make sure we are expanding internet for all. I just talked about some of the work we do from a workforce solutions perspective. I talked about TIRAC, I talked about TEC. One of the things I probably should stress on is making sure, as we think about this program, making sure that we're covering diversity and inclusion. It's important to reach out to all of the rural areas. So often, a lot of the focus is more on the urban areas and making sure that we have all the facilities and education in those urbanized areas. Well, as we're thinking about internet for all and you're expanding rurally into some of the rural areas, we need to make sure that we're providing the education and training in the outskirts so that everybody has an opportunity to learn, train, and essentially take on jobs, right? And when we talk about job creation, we also talk about careers, because we think about good jobs. These are well-paying jobs, so we're excited to have people join these jobs and really be able to build up their web portfolio. But it's not just about a job for us, it's about a career. And I'll tell you, my background is accounting, finance, real estate. And today I'm within the telecommunications industry, been in the telecommunications industry 20 plus years. And you guys can probably tell I'm very passionate still about the industry because I think there's so many opportunities that we can have as we grow within this industry. Talk a little bit about what we do from a state perspective, because there's currently a lot of federal funding available. I know my colleague Steve will talk a little bit on the federal government funding that allows us to kind of build out internet for all. But we're working very closely with them to make sure that we are complying with the federal government requirements to ensure that the funding is readily available. So again, we can build out this workforce training solution and ensure that we do have the workforce necessary. And I'd like to touch a little bit on the program that we have with Ohio State University. So this program started as a sector partnership program where we lead the sector partnership. We work very closely with government as well as academia. And as we bring everyone together, we're making sure, again, that, for example, the state of Ohio has everything it needs in terms of understanding what that talent gap looks like. So it's labor, but also skills. And obviously, we bring in our industry as well. So we're talking to industry to understand what jobs are needed, what positions are needed, so we can then provide the education and that training to make sure we can meet their needs. The outreach that mentions here is really about the career awareness, because again, because we have a labor shortage, we need to be able to encourage folks to join our industry, to at least start that pipeline of the next generation of workers. This just summarizes some of the different initiatives that we have going on, and I can share this deck later, so you guys can take some of these links and see some of the work that we've been doing and how we've been able to scale the different partnerships we're involved in. Okay, here's a freebie. So for everyone in the room, everyone watching, we are offering this free 30-minute course. It's called Your Future with 5G. It's available for anyone to take a look at, be able to really see what 5G is and how it can help us and how it can, what's happening with 5G and the uses. And with that, here's my contact information. If you have any additional information, if you have questions, or if there's anything I can help you with, I welcome it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you to Amelia and Jesus. For time for questions. Should
I got a question from one of my students. What medium would holographic communications be used in 6G? And is there a way to visualize it?
So because all of this is, it's very inception, all of this is very conceptual. So we don't have a lot of specifics on what that actually looks like, other than it will be more of a seamless communication. I've seen some of the promos and some of the information where you might be in this office here in Puerto Rico, but your team is sitting in, let's say, Florida. And suddenly you're all in the same room because of this holographic communication, and you're all working on a project together. It feels like you're in the very same room because of that seamlessness.
Another question. You mentioned using remote sensing for maintenance and monitoring of communication lines. Have they started developing what type of sensors they'll be using, optical, RF? Are they thinking sensors within the atmosphere, outside the atmosphere, and with the man or man?
All of the above is the answer. All of the above. Again, we've seen water systems, electric utility using various sensors. Sometimes they're not even coming out to your home anymore to measure your usage. They're able to tap in and see what your usage looks like. I talked about farming and what I've seen happen in terms of being able to automatically turn on watering systems and fertilization systems. We've seen where they have all the traffic signals that operate remotely. Sometimes they capture you speeding through a red light. So there's a lot of those different applications being deployed in the different industries currently. Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment. It's incredible because in the University of Puerto Rico, we have most of those careers you mentioned in our electronic department, our computer science department, and also in other areas that we're very strong in providing this type of workforce. And also, we saw that all the mentions you make about the mission and vision of the organization and what you are doing are totally aligned with the society of Puerto Rico, and of course with the mission and vision of the university. And thanks for all that information that is very important to us. And by now we will be moving to the next conference that will be presented by Stephen Crowd, that is also from Wireless Infrastructure Association, and our assistant in the Chancellor's office, Juan Sanchez, will be reading this slide.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good morning. I'm going to read out to you a little bit about Stephen Crowd and his experience. He has extensive public policy and business development experience with expertise in technology, energy, infrastructure, resilience, and sustainability issues. He has served in senior positions in the U.S. Congress, executive branch, and the private sector. Stephen began his career in Washington, D.C., working for his local congressman. Served as a presidential political appointee at the U.S. Department of Energy, including positions as senior advisor for congressional and intergovernmental affairs, and associate director of the Office of Policy under the Acting Secretary Bill Richardson and Under Secretary Ernest Moniz. Steve continued practicing energy and environmental policy as managing director of government affairs at the American Gas Association. He transitioned to the telecommunications and high-tech arena, where he served in senior positions at both Motorola and Qualcomm. In these positions, he focused on a wide variety of issues, including broadband infrastructure, grid modernization, resilience, IoT and smart cities, cybersecurity, privacy, identity management, and sustainability. Steve's diverse background led him to begin his own consulting practice focused on strategic public-private partnerships in the fast-growing broadband, energy, IoT, smart cities, and resilient markets. He works extensively to promote 5G broadband workforce development in states. He led the Smart Cities Policy Work Group, where he helped spur the introduction of federal legislation, including the Smart Cities and Communities Act and the Moving First Act. Steve created and served as project manager of the Readiness for Resilience program, which helps communities impacted by natural disaster enhance infrastructure resilience through the deployment of smart technology. Finally, Steve co-founded a nonprofit organization called Cameras for Recovery and Resilience, focused on the needs of grassroots organizations dedicated to assisting communities impacted by natural disaster. Steve holds a bachelor's degree of arts in economy from Rollins College and a master's of science degree in environmental sciences and policy from Johns Hopkins University. I'm going to leave you now with Stephen Parte.
Thank you, Juan, so much for that introduction. Chancellor Liz, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Roberto, thank you as well for the opportunity to speak here today. And this is just a great opportunity for the wireless infrastructure to speak to the programs related to workforce development that we can offer to the island. And just to give you some further background on my history here on the island, I've been very fortunate to have a roundabout relationship all the way back in the early 1990s when I was working in Washington, D.C. for a firm that represented the statehood party. Governor Pedro Grossiello was governor at that time. Charlie Rodriguez was the Senate Majority Leader, and Kenneth McClintock was in leadership in the House. And we were working to bring congressional members down to the island to talk about the benefits of statehood. Shortly after that, I continued my career in different ways, working for the utility industry and at the Department of Energy, as you mentioned, and then ultimately for Motorola and Qualcomm. I was with Qualcomm when Hurricane Maria struck the island in 2017. And like many companies, Qualcomm wanted to offer any assistance they could, both financially, but they also asked, could we put something together where we're utilizing smart technology that could enhance the infrastructure and make it more resilient. So I was doing the Smart Cities Policy, leading the Smart Cities Policy program for Qualcomm at that time, and we put together a program called the Readiness for Resilience. It came down here to the island, working with Governor Ricardo Rossi. So first started my relationship with the island with his father, Pedro, and then Ricardo was dealing with the aftermath of the hurricane. Since that time, started working with WIA, and now so excited to be working again with the island on this whole issue of broadband workforce. So long history of the island, very excited about it. So as Amelia said, the Wireless Infrastructure Association represents the companies that make up the wireless ecosystem. And that, of course, includes the large carriers, the tower companies, the integrators, anybody that helps build, develop and own the country's wireless infrastructure. So as I mentioned, we have been engaged with Puerto Rico really on this issue of workforce since August of 2021. In fact, that's when I started working with Chancellor Velez on WIA's initiative regarding workforce. And the reason we began outreaching to the island was because we were seeing various federal programs that were providing incentives, providing funding to encourage the development of broadband networks so that we can achieve the goal of the internet for all, okay? And in order to do that, it's not simply about deploying broadband, it's not simply about the technology, it's not simply about things like fiber antennas, concrete and steel. You have to have an investment in human capital to make it all work. You have to deploy training systems which address the workforce shortages, which address the skills gaps, so that we can more efficiently move through the process of broadband deployment. And this targeted investment in broadband workforce will help to serve underrepresented populations, including those in rural and urban areas with higher unemployment, and give them a chance to compete and to participate in high demand occupations that are well paying and sustainable. If we do not address the workforce need, we will not have a job-ready workforce, and that very goal of internet for all is at risk. As Amelia said, as an industry, we already face a bottleneck challenge of expanding broadband and connectivity due to a shortage in the broadband labor workforce. Finally, projects may be delayed or become more costly or even impossible to realize if we do not have an adequate broadband workforce. So what has WI been doing here on the island? We have begun a campaign, we have been conducting a campaign to educate key government officials, key government agencies, the academic community, industry, and other nonprofit organizations about the need for a broadband workforce. So some of the key government offices we have been working for, and we're so pleased to see that Secretary Goldberg was here, been working closely with the Office of Innovation. We've been working closely with the Puerto Rico Telecom Bureau, the newly devised Puerto Rico broadband program that Mr. Goldberg is running to pursue the overarching broadband deployment strategy for the island. The Puerto Rico Innovation and Technology Service, DDEC, the Department of Education and Commerce, and then the WIOA program, which provides funding for education and training for the workforce under DDEC. Of course, we have been working closely with the academic community. Chancellor Velez has been a fantastic partner. We've been working very closely with Ernesto Vazquez at Polytechnic University, and then at San Juan Community College, working with the chairman of the board, Ricardo Aponte, and the San Juan president, the president of the San Juan Council, Juan Pablo. We have been outreaching to some of the major industry players on the island, and that of course includes all the major carriers, Luma, which is running the energy transition here on the island, as well as their partner Quanta Energy Services. So this is a very important aspect of broadband workforce. You simply cannot modernize the island's grid if you do not have qualified workers in broadband and 5G. Other players that you might not think of, and this is really the advantage of 5G, right? It is a widespread application, right? So companies like Lockheed Martin that are based on the West Coast are very interested in working with us. Jacob, we work closely closely with a local engineering firm here, GovTech. All of these companies have a strong interest in helping to develop the workforce. We're working closely with the unions here. We met yesterday, actually, with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They're looking at almost 1,400 employees that can benefit from further workforce education and training. We have spoken with LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America. They are very interested in this effort as well. And then nonprofits such as the Job Corps here across the island, right? These are the organizations that work with skills like digital literacy, right? Training students how to apply for jobs. Some of the very basic needs you need to enhance your career, and we can work closely with them on broadband workforce. Engine 4 here in Mayland, right? Luis runs that, and that's a partnership with T-Mobile that has been a fantastic innovation here to help bring students together and teach them various skills. And the Puerto Rico Science and Technology Trust. So as we speak to all of these organizations in government, academia, industry, and nonprofits, the overriding vision of WIA's Broadband Workforce Initiative is to attract new students and workers to the broadband workforce, build a diverse and highly skilled broadband workforce that encompasses the fundamental knowledge base applicable to rapidly changing technology landscapes, develop specific occupation credentials that are relevant to the changing job demands and criteria, and provide pre-apprentice and apprentice training that result in quality, sustainable broadband jobs as identified by industry demand. Those last few words are very important. As identified by industry demand. We want to have broadband curriculum. We want to have apprenticeships that are specifically geared to the demand for by the industry, so that you can go from education to apprentice training straight into the market, because the industry needs these positions filled. So as we're working with states and territories, these are some of the recommendations that we provide in terms of developing an overall workforce development program. Number one, we want to be consistent with the existing state workforce development plan. Okay, we would never propose that we have all the answers and you need to replace all the great work we've done on the island with remote workforce. We want to enhance that overall effort with a broadband component. You need to define the goals of the workforce transformation. What is that exactly is it that we want to accomplish through our workforce program? And then once those goals are defined, we recommend the establishment of a sector partnership with that being led by an industry intermediary. Amelia touched on that, and I'll get into that a little bit further. And then once we've established that sector partnership, we start the process of education transformation, workforce skills transformation, and finally promoting a diverse workforce. So I'm going to walk through these step by step. So the first recommendation was consistency with state workforce, with the state workforce development plan, in this case, territory. So let's take a look at what Puerto Rico has. Okay, Puerto Rico has a 2020 to 2023 workforce plan. And this is a plan that is required by the federal government to participate in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Program, WIOA, right? So Puerto Rico has identified several strategic initiatives, including an aerospace cluster, science and technology cluster, an international insurance center, international financial center, Port of Americas, and Act 20 for service exports, among other initiatives. So these initiatives are going to require new demands, new skills, and education to meet the upcoming job demand. Now, if you look at Puerto Rico's Department of Labor projections, by 2026, the expected job occupation demand will increase by 28,000 new jobs. That's substantial. That's an exciting opportunity we have to address. But very interesting, almost 36% of those jobs will require only a high school diploma. 34% of them will require no formal education at all, and only 15% will require a bachelor's degree. So you're seeing a massive change in the educational system based on job demand. Okay, so obviously we're here at the University of Puerto Rico Bayamon, which has traditionally offered four-year college degrees. Okay, now we're seeing that many of the jobs of the future will require only require certificate programs. Okay, in potentially broadband workforce. So the academic system needs to adjust to that change to provide students with those opportunities to get directly into the marketplace. I will note also here at the bottom that all of these strategic initiatives outlined in the Puerto Rico WIOA plan will require ubiquitous and reliable broadband. Broadband is the key driver to Puerto Rico's economy. A few goals that I'll run through real quickly here that are also contained in the territory workforce plan. So they need to develop efficient partnerships with employers, educational systems, and workforce development organizations to develop the skilled workforce necessary. Increase awareness, right, and participation and utilization of these workforce development programs, right? So Job Corps had a lot of stuff going on, right? If we get something going here on the broadband workforce, we need to market ourselves in partnership with the academic community so that students are informed of the opportunity that exists. Facilitating a framework for planning, developing, and governing a job-driven system by employers and job seekers. So as we initiate broadband workforce programs, we partner, number one, with the academic institutions, but we want to make sure that industry, local industry is at the table. Local industry is providing presentations to the student body of the job opportunities, the experience that it requires, right? So that you're seeing this pathway from education training to quality jobs. Maintain the American Job Center system here in Puerto Rico as students seek, employers and meet their occupational education and employment needs. Enhance performance through improved data integration and metrics across the workforce development system. And that's something that's going to be very important as we continue to develop this program. We're going to need to see the data, some that I mentioned here. What are the jobs available? What are the skills required? What is the training required? So we can match all of this up to get people out in the workforce quickly. And finally, prepare workers for the future economy of Puerto Rico. These are the American Job Centers across the island, right? I think there's 16 of them, but if you see, they're all dispersed regionally, right? So when we took a look at Puerto Rico's workforce plan that exists today, our thought was, well, we want to partner with the academic institutions, but we certainly also want to partner with these American Job Centers. They already exist. They're already providing people with the basic skills necessary to look for new job opportunities. So we would envision a traditional hub and spoke system where we're looking at broadband curriculum, we're working at broadband training programs, but then outreaching to the existing organizations such as the American Job Centers across the island to develop public-private partnerships with them and get all of this important information. So the next recommendation, was define goals of the workforce development plan. So, two key goals, that we would like to mention. Ensure that Puerto Rico has the skilled workforce needed to support the statewide expansion of broadband, okay? Big emphasis on broadband deployment. There's, of course, a new big federal program, the BEAD program, that provides a lot of funding for that. But you're gonna need that skilled workforce to, recognize, your broadband, deployment goals. Develop a system of education to workforce platforms through work-based learning programs, to support the overall economic growth of the island. So obviously, working with the academic institutions, is a central part of that goal. Examine the workforce needs surrounding broadband expansion and 5G deployment, and align the workforce programs to address those gaps, okay? That's a big part of the overall effort. What are the workforce needs? Where are the gaps? And let's address them. Let's work together, public-private partnerships, to address those needs. Establish a framework that connects workforce development entities, education systems, and develop education and training programs to meet industry's workforce demands. Much like I just said. Ensure that the program and framework address the current and future 5G and beyond needs of a skilled workforce. So this has to be a progressive program, right? This is a living program. So we're not just talking about 5G, we're going to be looking at 6G, as we mentioned in some of the other presentations. And then overcome some of the process-related barriers for employers to adopt registered apprentice programs. That's one of the real capabilities that WIA has, is being the national sponsor of the telecommunications industry registered apprentice program. They can work with companies to help them establish their own registered apprentice program, right? So they can help them understand how to do that. They can help them sort of beat the bureaucratic hurdles and get up and running and training their employees. So, the next recommendation I mentioned, establishment of sector partnership and industry intermediaries. Okay, so we have been proposing on the island here the establishment of sector partnership, and that needs to be led by an industry intermediary that is qualified to manage and administer that sector partnership. WIA is the National Telecommunications Industry Intermediary as designated by the U.S. Department of Labor. And through our experience, we know that the intermediary has to be able to align high-quality work-based learning programs with education to occupation pathway priorities. Education to occupation pathway priorities. Again, that emphasis on let's do the training, let's prepare people for jobs. The intermediary should be able to translate the industry demand of the skilled workforce and competencies and map that to existing and new educational degree and non-degree programs. The intermediary should play the role of convener, bringing together all of the relevant stakeholders, right? That includes the government bodies that oversee these programs. That includes the academic institutions that will deploy the education. That includes industry that will run the registered apprentice programs. And then nonprofit organizations that can contribute to things such as digital literacy and diversity promotion. The intermediary should also work with different stakeholder groups, students, teachers, employers, and government agencies. Okay, really sort of repeating what I just said there. Now, the model for that, as I mentioned earlier, really is that traditional hub and spoke model, right? So here's just an example. This doesn't mean that it would be laid out exactly like this here on the island, but creating a Puerto Rico Workforce Innovation Center or a broadband center of excellence, however you want to term that, okay? WIA would be envisioned to be the industry intermediary, running the management and administration of that program, working closely with the academic institutions like UPR, Bayamont, Polytechnic, San Juan Community job board centers that I mentioned earlier. But we would have both advisory committees from the key government agencies on the left side and an industry leadership council potentially, right? So that we're getting strategic advice from the government and industry to the sector partnership. And then as we develop all the information, we're taking into account the needs of different regions, different universities. Then we're going to transfer all of that information out to the different regions across the island. Okay, you've got the Rainy Job Corps Center. We've had discussions with them over the 2-year period. They're very interested in partnering with us, right? You have UPR out there, of course. You have Inter-American. You have industry partners in that region. You can go down the line here. San Juan, Bayamon, Enego. You have Mayaguez, Ponce, and Dog West. So we want to make certain that the hub and spoke is outreaching to all the regions across the island, disseminating the educational and training opportunities to develop that broadband workforce. The fourth goal, education system transformation. So what are we trying to do here? Short-term objectives for education. Develop the curriculum for non-degree certificate programs in broadband and 5G. Create an awareness campaign to attract interest from students to participate in these programs. Medium-term objectives. An the training program through the curriculum development and perhaps create beyond just a certificate program, perhaps create an actual major in the university here in 5G and broadband. Address the lack of industry-oriented faculty members by creating a train the faculty boot camp. I think Amelia touched on this in her presentation, right? There is a serious lack of qualified teachers in this new endeavor of broadband workforce. So we can help do that through teacher trainer boot camps. Create a framework to offer an executive certificate on 5G and broadband strategies. Some of the long-term objectives, hey, why don't we take this into the middle school, into the high schools, right? Let's get the younger generations involved here with some basic training in broadband and 5G and 6G ultimately, right? So that they actually know that cell phone, what is all the infrastructure involved to make that work. Create advanced placement courses in telecom, fiber, and spectrum, and then roll out of interdisciplinary graduate programs. These are some of the actual credentials that we offer today. A wireless broadband infrastructure credential that includes courses like Wireless 101, Macro Site Fundamentals, Get Up to Speed with 5G, Cellular Communication Theories, and RF Safety and Awareness, right? We offer a credential on the 5G ecosystem with courses such as Your Future with 5G, Spectrum Fundamentals, the 5G ecosystem, and cell site design and planning. A couple more of the credentials. In-building wireless solutions. So this is really critical for, even here at UPR, right? You want to make sure that your students have that ubiquitous access to broadband, right? Uninterrupted services. Your Wi-Fi is very strong. So this program includes DAS and small cell basics, Wi-Fi integration, in-building wireless ecosystems overview, in-building RF DAS components and subsystems. Fourth credential, 5G and broadband deployments. Edge computing, right? So there was this talk about the cross-cutting nature of broadband, right? So edge computing is a critical component of that. CBRS and private networks. Fiber for wireless infrastructure, line sweeping and DIM testing, and then fundamentals of RF engineering. So that gives you a flavor of some of the credentials that we offer to students today, right? So they can participate and get these certificates and credentials that will make them marketable to recommendations number 5 and 6, we're gonna address these at the same time here. Um, Workforce skills transformation, okay? Again, we have short-term, midterm, and long-term objectives for this transformation. So we talked about creating regional broadband centers of excellence, right? And I showed you the map of the American Job Centers, right? So that might be a nice way to actually promote those partnerships with the facilities that already exist, right? And create a broadband center of excellence at different points regionally across the island. Create cost support mechanisms for training, assessment, or certification expenses for registered apprentices, okay? So how do we create incentive funds so more students, more employees can engage in these programs? Define career paths, okay, for the 5G industry. Define career pathways. So we want to move from education to training into jobs, as I keep repeating. Midterm objectives. Create an awareness campaign for the available funding programs that can be used by career and technical education. Provide a framework for apprentice models, create new occupations, and identify on-the-job competencies, and engage and align with employers. Engage and align with employers. That's very critical to this whole education and training component, because we want to know that we're preparing students for the jobs that are out there. Okay. Long-term objectives. Create career and apprenticeship technical assistance centers so that we can help students and guide them towards the support that they need to complete their education and training. Provide assistance for placement in apprenticeships and internships with actual employers. And establish strategies to implement diversity and inclusion goals. So I talked repetitively about developing career pathways. So our model program is in the state of Ohio in partnership with Ohio State University. And we have worked very closely with them to develop career pathways such as this, right? So here is an example of telecom tower technicians, right? And so we list in each segment here what it takes in terms of education and training to get an entry level job for tower training, a mid-level, and senior manager. And then if you look at some of the salaries for some of these jobs here, now this is Ohio. Every state, every territory is going to have a different salary range. But these are very well-paying jobs. They're sustainable, and you can develop a long-term career in broadband workforce. So that's one example of the pathways we work together in a stakeholder partnership with the academic institutions and the industry to create these pathways. Another example, utility construction installers, okay? We all know the energy grid here is in a constant state of repair and update. So this is going to be a very important need here on the island, right? So again, we go through step by step what the training would be needed to get various positions to help with the upgrading of the utility. So there are going to be very serious job demands in this aspect, but very serious and rewarding job opportunities. And we develop these career pathways through the sector partnerships. So, what are the sector partner outcomes? So Amelia had this very same chart. I think it's worth repeating. So we have to have an intermediary that is managing and administering the sector partnership that is geared to address the skills gaps and challenges. And we list what we have seen through our experience, some of those very challenges, right? And then as we work through the intermediary, through the sector partnership, then we're getting into the outcomes, and that is industry-focused curriculum for high school, community college, and four-year colleges. Increased engagement between the employers and the school, job-ready training for students, increase the awareness through career pathways that I showed, industry-ready talent coming, in this case, it's listed as Ohio schools. We hope to have it at Puerto Rico schools, scalable models, statewide rollouts, and timely deployment of your broadband system here on the island. Those are the key outcomes that can be achieved through a sector partnership led by an industry intermediary to address the 5G skills gaps and challenges. WIA is uniquely positioned to help lead this effort. We are the National Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program sponsor. We have been awarded the Closing the Skills Gap grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. We are designated by the Department of Labor as the industry intermediary for the telecommunications industry. We have our own telecommunications education center. I'll walk you through some of the certification programs we offer. And we have existing programs like our broadband and 5G readiness that can be deployed immediately. We need further verification of that. NTIA, which is running the whole new program on speed broadband deployment, recommends that states and territories consider deploying industry-led sectoral partnerships that bring together multiple community partners. They recommend employer-led curriculum development. They recommend that you utilize proven models like registered apprenticeships, okay? So you can feel confident that if you adopt this program we're advocating for, it's going to get the blessing of the federal government. NTIA's workforce plan also mentions some of the very programs that WIA is leading. The Ohio Workforce Development Strategy that I mentioned, that is being run by the government of Ohio through Ohio State University, with WIA serving as the industry intermediary, administering that entire program, was specifically listed in NTIA's workforce development recommendations. The TBAP program I've talked about many times, right? They specifically mentioned that that is a program that states and territories should consider utilizing to help train their employees. Warriors for wireless, right? We've had a long history with our veterans, and that's just one constituency that we can help increase their employment opportunities through broadband workforce. I mentioned the BEAD opportunity that exists. So the federal government, through the Infrastructure Act that was passed, probably 18 months ago now, has the BEAD opportunity, which provides $42 billion to states and territories for broadband deployment, but also requires that states and territories develop broadband workforce development programs. Puerto Rico is going to receive $334 million for this federal program, right? Puerto Rico has already submitted to the NTIA their 5-year BEAD proposal. It's been very well received from what I understand. And so we have a tremendous opportunity here to transform the educational, the training, and ultimately have quality broadband job placed here on the island. If we all work together, we can achieve those goals. And that's the end of my presentation. I appreciate your time.
And the crowd, any question for him? Question for now? Thank you. Then at this moment, first we welcome Amelia and Stephen for being here with us today, giving these spectacular presentations. At this moment, we will take a short break previously to the next conference. Then we will be right back at the next conference.